What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the big bad Shady 80, another episode. This build is really dragging on a lot longer than I would have liked. Unfortunately, we've had COVID. Well, we have COVID at the moment, which has been a crappy week anyway. It sucks. But we really need the hoist back, and at the moment, we really just want to work on getting this to a point where we can get it off the hoist at the very least. So today I'm going to work on getting the filler for the long range tank and everything up in where it needs to be. I'll have a look at maybe getting this exhaust fitted up and finalized, get that heat shield sorted on the passenger side under the engine mount, get the hubs swapped over, basically try and do everything we need the hoist for, so that after that I can come off the hoist, and during the week we can actually use this hoist for a few other jobs in between getting this thing sorted out, obviously. But you know, we don't need it on the hoist to do all the wiring and do all that, so it'd be nice to have the hoist back at the moment. So we'll get in, smash this out, so that's what we'll start with today. Rex is doing a bit of work on our 80 in the meantime as well. Couple of LS80 rigs, eh? Righto guys, so like everything I had in my head that we were gonna have to do for the minute has ended up being a lot simpler than I expected. So the filler for his long range tank, I actually realized that he doesn't have the piece that they need, which makes a lot of sense, because I was like, why didn't they just put the piece in? I thought he supplied it, but what he supplied was another full unit assembly for the filler, which is already in the car and it's already working. All he needs is the little bit of fuel hose that actually goes from the sub tank to the filler neck. Now the issue that we have is that all of the silicone hose that we use for things like radiators and intake pipes and stuff like that, that general racework silicone stuff, is not fuel safe, so we can't use it for a filler. So I've just had to buy a genuine Toyota 80 series sub tank filler tube. So we're just waiting for that to get here and chuck it in. Either way, it's super easy to get at. I don't actually need it on the hoist to do that. Now, doing the freewheeling hubs, again, I had it in my head that I was gonna have to pull the wheels off and start looking at going through that, looking at the hubs and the instructions that they supply. And after we get the hubcaps off, I've realized that this is actually also a uber simple job that I've massively overcomplicated in my brain. So I don't even need the hoist for this either. I'm gonna do it now anyway, but also very, very simple. So anyway, we'll get these swapped over, we'll get this up, and then we'll start looking at this exhaust, getting some fluid back into this transfer case and getting it sealed up. Those sorts of last things that I think that we'll need the hoist for. As far as doing the actual fuel pump install, we should be able to do that from inside. Just lift the carpet up, there should be a window in there. So obviously this is all not to say that this can't come back on the hoist if we do need to. It's just that because it's really heavy and hard to push around, I would rather get everything we need on to do on the hoist to get it running done. And that way, if we need to put it back on the hoist later, hopefully we can just drive it in, because man, I hate driving. I hate pushing forward drives. I hate it. Sucks. It's so crap. All right, guys, so ended up actually taking the wheels off because we needed to actually get a good hit at this hub to free up the tapered cones that go underneath the bolts, or the nuts that actually bolt the hub on. So anyway, they were a bit hard to free up, but after that, there's like a circlip on the spline and pop, off they come, easy as that. Look at that, easy done. First time I've ever done these, I can't believe how easy they are. So anyway, we'll clean up this surface obviously, because they provide you a new gasket in the kit. So we'll get all the old gasket and old crap off the surface. New gasket on, new hub goes on, circle it back on, and then chuck the cover on and torque them up, and that's it, that's happy days. How bloody easy, how good. Simple as that, guys. New gasket, new hub, torque these 26 foot-pounds, the circlip goes back on. Now we just have our cover, which engages these splines when it's on or off, and we torque that up to specified specs, and then it's just a big yee-haw, easy as that. Righto guys, so Rex has welded some tube nut to this passenger side pipe so that we can actually make a heat shield that goes on the top, which was going to protect the clutch slave cylinder on the side of the box here from some heat. So as I said in a previous episode, it's a little bit ironic that we ended up ditching both the heat shields that came with the Marks kit, and we're actually making a heat shield for something that the Marks kit didn't actually intend to shield anyway. I find that a bit funny. But anyway, we are going to have to probably find some sort of solution for the heat shield that was attached to this engine mount. For now, we are going to, this brake line that I made without the engine in the car, now that it's in the car, we can see where the pipes are and stuff. We'll probably remake that brake line again, make it a different shape, and make it in a way that we can actually make a heat shield to protect it that just mounts to the chassis. And it can protect that heat shield, and we'll protect it that way. And that way we don't have to bother trying to get the Marks ones back in the car, because it just doesn't fit between the chassis and the pipe. So again, I don't know if that's something we've done. I really can't say. not much else I can say about it apart from the fact that it just definitely doesn't fit in this car. So whatever it is, it is. So while Rex has been doing that, I actually went back and properly tightened up and mounted all of the rear section of the exhaust now that the fab work for the front of it's done. So that's all properly mounted up and actually in there now. And then because of Dan's handiwork with our V-bands, all these sections are really easy to get in and out. So I'll properly mount the rear tail shaft and we'll get the transfer case full of fluid again. But the front tail shaft I'm actually going to leave. And I've decided to pretty much leave the pipes just dummied up for now, because there's probably a few things that we still have to do as far as wiring and things go that's going to be a lot easier with the pipes out of the car. So
yeah, those knock sensors and
yeah, exactly, wiring. Knock sensors, starter, things like that. So considering the fact that we've got V-bands in the exhaust back here anyway, which Dan has done for us, they're not hard to just get those in and out. So it allows me to actually properly do the exhaust back up to the front here. And then we can just do the pipes, and because of the way Dan's made these sections, it's really easy to get them in and out on the ground anyway. So won't worry about mounting the pipes properly, and I'll leave the front drive shaft able to come in and out so that we can easily work around the pipes and stuff as well. So that's where we're at with it. So it's all coming up Millhouse. So I've got to find the rest of the tail shaft bolts and get this sorted and get some, I don't even know what oil to put in that. I suppose just 140 weight gear oil. Do some Googling. Find out which oils I should put in there. Alright guys, that's Rex's heat shield that he's made. That's just going to keep our clutch slave protected and eliminate any possibility of clutch fade due to heat. So, yeah.
Can't hurt just to have a bit of more heat shielding.
Also, this is what your hubs look like in the end. 2x4, 4x4. Locked, unlocked. So Rex is here remaking this brake line. Try and go a bit better out than the one that I made went. Get him sorted. I fished some oil out for our transfer case and found a new seal crush washer for the drain bung, so she should be fine. So get some oil in this puppy. All right.
Managed to move that anchor. Just put it on the one for the clutch. So now they are re-secured, nice and solid, out of trouble. Bent them as best I can so that they're not rubbing on anything, and that's about all we can do.
We've got our new brake line in there, do we?
Yep. I would have liked a bit more clearance, but there's just not much you can.
So that's the new brake line route, and what you just saw there was Rex has now re-secured these other lines that we had to move out of the way now that the pipe and everything's in there. So obviously now that we're not running the Marks heat shield, we can just secure these in what's going to be most convenient for us, and then we'll just make our heat shield to suit where they end up, which now we can do. So with the new brake line and everything in there, now we can just make a heat shield, and that's more or less this section of the car sorted out, which is a lot of what we wanted to get done before it comes off the hoist. So yeah, cracking along. I've got the transfer cases full of oil. Everything I wanted to do on the car is done on the hoist for now. I had a quick chat to the owner about how the long range tank's set up, and there's just a transfer pump from the long range tank into the main tank. So it is just the main tank fuel pump that we have to worry about, which is awesome. Simplifies things heaps.
Means it should have that little access.
Should have a little access hatch under the seat.
Should be all good.
So we can do that on the floor. It doesn't have to be on the hoist. So yeah, once we get this heat shield sorted, that's most of the stuff that we needed the hoist for this car. All right, guys, so we just, Rex went to do the slave up properly because we just chucked it on the other day when Dan was doing the exhaust so that we could fab around it. But one thing we noticed while Rex was doing it up properly is that the banjo bolt on the back of the slave actually hits on the bell housing adapter. So it has done up tight, like there's no gap. We decided just for a quick sort of fix is to just pull them bolts out, and Rex is going to put a washer underneath the slave on each bolt, just to space it out like 1 or 2 mil. Hopefully it's just enough to just get it off that that bell housing adapter, and after that it'll be happy days. But
it's not going to fuck up the alignment of the rod either.
Yeah,
so it should be all right.
Looks like it'll be fine.
Yeah,
just as long as it's enough. Just as long as there's enough off that it's not putting heaps of pressure on that banjo bolt is all we need.
Yeah.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shady 80, the L98 swapped 80 series Landcruiser that we are building. Unfortunately, since the last episode and the months that ensued, it sort of got a bit neglected for a few weeks just because of the crap that we had to deal with. So we're back into it now. Rex is working hard at this wiring, getting it all sorted. He's starting to sort out the integration into the fuse box and get it all into the car properly integrated. We're still waiting on all the AC parts, just like we're still waiting on all the AC parts for this thing, which have been on back order for seemingly forever at this point, which is very frustrating. So it might just be a case of both of these people might have to just bring these cars back once we finally get this AC stuff in to get the AC put in. I think the most important thing at the moment, because it's freaking cold, is that the heaters work. So we've got Darcy here just fitting the fuel pump hanger into the main tank with the Warbro 255 that is supplied with the Marks kit. So it's going into the main tank at the moment, which is nice and easy from up top here, which is grouse. So it goes in there. I'm just about to fit, I finally did arrive, it's around here somewhere, is the new filler neck for the sub tank, which is going in since the gas tanker was removed. So we've got to chuck that in so that the sub tank filler and everything works as well. So we're hoping that whoever put the tank in, hooked everything up right and everything's ready to go, and that the sub tank just works. We're fingers crossed that that's what's going to happen. Because we'd really like to not have to go back through all of the sub tank stuff. But hey, it is what it is. You know, cars, they do what they do. So anyway, well on the way. So similar to the Patrol, if you've watched that, we are using the same fuse and relay box setup. These are a GEP. They're a nice little unit. They're very well priced. And once they're all populated and filled up, they are actually waterproof, which is perfect for something like a four-wheel drive. So that's what we're using for this. A few extra little bits and pieces that have to be integrated because this is an E38 PCM versus the old LS1 PCM in the Patrol. So there's a few extra things that have to go in, but otherwise it's more or less the same principle. So, righto guys, so when I bought this filler tube for the sub tank in this thing, it was, the eBay listing said that it was genuine Toyota part, which it is, and it said it was to suit an 80, but I've searched the actual part number on the packet and it's actually to suit a 105, which is a different diameter on the filler tube. So this doesn't fit after all that, which is an absolute pain. And I've tried to look for an 80 series one. I can't find a specific part number for it, but I cannot also find one that specifically says that it's to fit the sub tank. They all say that it's fit the main tank. I've checked the shape of it though. It looks like if you cut it down, it should still fit in the sub side. So might have to just order one of them. Either way, it's not going to be here. So the deal is the owner's got this booked in to go to, I can't remember who it is, maybe Superior, I can't remember, don't quote me on that, but he's got it booked in for, it's getting a whole new drawer set up in the rear. We haven't installed the interior back in yet until we've got it on the dyno and we know the fuel pump and everything's all good. Last thing we want to do is go install the interior and then have to pull it all back out because there's a fuel pump issue, which isn't uncommon. So anyway, he's got to pick it up and take it to get the drawers done. So at this stage, it's just going to have to be without a sub tank for now because we don't have a filler for it. I mean, realistically, whoever fitted the sub tank probably should have sorted that out, but it ended up falling on us. So we're trying to get it sorted. So it won't have a sub tank and it won't have AC. But anyway, he's just going to bring it back for us to sort that out. Darcy's here, just fitted up the owner supplied. Oh, sorry, Darsehole. The owner supplied a power steering cooler, new power steering cooler, so Darcy's just ripped the rad out to fit that up for us, so that's awesome. Pulling the high pressure power steering line out, we've got to make him a new one. But yeah, it will return back through this cooler now and then back to the reservoir, keep his power steering fluid nice and cool. Rex is still working at this wiring. At the moment he's sorting out the go pedal on the bracket.
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're not?
Fucking wiring.
Just wiring.
Fucking wiring.
Just more wiring. Rex's favourite, especially under the dash.
Yeah, it's great.
But one thing we do have to sort out is the go pedal, which I did say in the last episode I wanted to talk about a lot more in this episode, about the actual bracket that we've been supplied, that the customer actually sourced from a guy over in WA who makes them and makes this job a lot easier. So that's the one. This one. I will find the dude's name. He does have a YouTube channel as well. And I'm pretty sure it's just the guy from the YouTube channel that makes them. I'm not sure. But either way, I'll link the dude's YouTube and I'll link whoever makes this pedal bracket to you guys as well. It'll be probably in the description or something, or up in the corner of the video. But anyway, that makes our life just a little bit easier having that and then being able to mount the pedal up. Bob's your Arnie. Righto guys, smashing through this. as much as smashing through you can. So I talked to you guys before in previous episodes and stuff about a program that we use now called Autodata, which is really handy for a lot of things. And we thought it would be really handy for wiring, which it has been, honestly. But what we found, Rex has got the Landcruiser loom out here on the floor. And from what we found from both the Max Ellery manual that we've got for a Landcruiser, as well as the Autodata, is that neither of them match what the hell's going on with this Landcruiser loom, which is making Rex's life very hard for trying to integrate the conversion. So it's sort of becoming a bit of a back to roots and back to just trying to figure it out with what's in the loom, just about, because the Autodata has not been a lot of help because none of it matches. But anyway, this is the challenge with doing bespoke custom things. But anyway, that's what we do. Righto guys, bit of progress coming through. As you can see, got the intake back off for now so that we can add a few things on top. We swapped out the VE alternator for an earlier Gen 3 LS alternator. So the later VEs, I think I've been through it in this series before, but they are what they call an F-type or a smart charge alternator, which means that the BCM in the commutator actually controls the voltage at which the alternator charges at. So it's like a variable regulator, and you know, they work well when they're all together, but as soon as you go putting a 6 litre in a conversion like this, it's not really necessary, and they're pretty hard to get to work right. It's a lot easier, cheaper, and simpler to just whack an LS1 alternator in with just a regular old regulator that just charges at your desired amperage and does everything you need it to do. It's just, they work better. So we swapped an LS1 alternator onto this thing. I've run a new power for our starter and deleted the old one out of the positive wiring loom, whatever you call it. Can't even think about what you call it at the moment. My brain's so frazzled. So that runs down to the starter on the other side, the new starter in the LS location. Started looking at the routing for the power steering lines to our new cooler, which Darcy installed yesterday on the front of the condenser. So that's the return, obviously runs through the cooler from bottom to top, and then runs back up to the reservoir, which is going to be up here. But at the moment, the pipes aren't installed for a final, and I thought, you know, beauty, I can just pull the pipes off the 2 bolts, whack the gasket in there and put them back on, and then the pipes will be installed for the final time, which is great. But they've used this metal tape, same stuff they've used on the intake, and it is just an absolute nightmare. And the only way that I'm going to be able to get this off the head surface is to remove the pipe again, remove the pipe entirely, which sounds like a small job, but for this side, the only way it comes out is if you jack the engine up, which means I've got to jack the engine up off the engine mount, get the pipe out just to bloody scrape this crappy tape off that didn't need to be used. Just things like that. Things like that, which cost so much time, which you can never account for. You can never account for other people's work or other things other people do. And it's just going to cost now hours to pull this pipe out just to clean up the head properly. So very, very frustrating stuff, especially when you're trying to get things done on a very, very short time schedule. So anyway, we'll try and work through it. So a few things that I forgot to show you yesterday while Darcy was here helping out before he went home. But you can see he sorted out the radiator hoses for us. I know I did say in a previous episode that we'd just make these out of alloy, but we just ran out of time. Darcy just went at it and he did a really good job. So the Commodore one that the marks give you with the kit, we've just put a adapter in the top, which allowed us to shorten it up and do that neatly. And it means we've also got a spare port for something if it's ever needed for anything in future. We're not going to use this for steam because the radiator already has a steam port, which works off the steam port on the LS perfectly. So that's how that goes. So that's a top rad hose. At the moment, we'll just bung that. But it is there for if ever he needs to or wants to add another temperature gauge or whatever he may want to do. And the bottom hose, we actually used a combination of a new hose, a little bit of alley, which we bead rolled each end with a bead roller, and this is the pipe that actually, or the hose that actually comes with the Marks kit. But I think I went through it in a previous episode. That hose that comes with the Marks kit, it's very obviously to fit a 105, which the outlet on the bottom of the radiator actually points up a lot more, whereas the 80 series outlet on the radiator is straight out. So the bend isn't quite right. That's why we had to join it together with another bend and get it to work like that. But it's worked out really well as well. That's awesome. The high pressure stout power steering line has been removed, ready for us to make a new one out of AN line. We're just waiting for a few fittings to get here to finish that off, which will then complete our power steering system. But I've got to get this pipe sorted first so that I can mount the coils, because a power steering reservoir mounts on the coil bracket, which means then I can finish our return and also the feed to the pump from the reservoir, and then it's only the high pressure line we have to do. But it's gonna take me a few hours now, so that's very annoying. But anyway, we'll get onto that. So for the Alt, the standard Landcruiser charge cable manages to reach actually quite well, which is nice. And then it is just, I think this one is the charge and excite and everything else that has to be changed. That plug has to be changed to the LS1 plug, which is on the way, and then it'll plug straight into that, and that'll be happy days. So it's a bit annoying that the main battery was this side, and just so happens that, you know, the ECU and everything else worked a lot better on this side, which means that all the power to all this stuff has to actually come from this battery, not this battery. But anyway, it is what it is. All right, guys, 2 hours later, I've got one head exhaust bank clean. Still got to do both intakes and the other exhaust after I got the other pipe out. So probably another 6 hours to go. What a freaking joyful experience this is. Anyway, with this pipe out, you can get a good look at the heat shield that was made up to replace the one from Marks that didn't quite fit where it was supposed to with that pipe. So that one there actually fits quite nicely around the pipe and protects all the things that it needs to. So happy days with that one. Righto guys, getting through it. Getting the tape and stuff off the intake ports wasn't as bad as the exhaust. It didn't take as long. It still took a ridiculous amount of time for what it was, but it wasn't as long. But they also use the same tape over the oil pressure sensor and over the PCV, and to get it off those things, freaking hell, what a nightmare. So absolutely nightmarish stuff. But as you can see, we've got our Marks oil pressure sender adapter ready to go with the Landcruiser oil pressure sender there for the gauge, and we've got the brand new LS one for the ECU. So at this stage, I've just talked all of the valley plate bolts up, and we're ready for the intake to go back on now. Sorted out the heater hoses while I was going, so we'll go through the tap straight in, and then it comes out of this one under here. So that's pretty easy. We just have one heater hose from the water pump to there and one to there, which is nice and simple, and we should be able to make that nice and neat after the intake goes on. But that's it for that. This actual whole AC line is coming off, and we've got a new adapter Denso pad to go on there, which goes directly to a new screw type fitting, which then goes directly to the pump over there. So you can take that off and get it out of the way as well. But we'll get the intake on. Once that's on, this pipe can go in now, can go back in, which is going to be fun. But at least then starting to get sort of a lot of this side of the engine bay pretty finalised. We can start getting the power steering res in and get the lines finished and stuff like that, and start getting it sorted out. So starting to come together. Righto guys, coming along. So this is where our power steering reservoir will end up mounted right here. Had to be forward, couldn't be back because of the fuel line. It would be right in the way of the fuel line if it was back one, so it had to go there. And yeah, our our coil right angle bracket, which mounts the front coil. I'm pretty sure in the instructions, I'm not sure that this is exactly how it's meant to be, but it doesn't fit underneath this alternator in a regular configuration, and this is the best configuration it works. And as we found from a previous episode, with just one end trimmed up on the other side, we can fit all four in the standard configuration. So this is going to be the best way to lay out the coils. So that's how it's done. And yeah, this is this side sort of coming along. As far as the fuel lines, we've got the factory return and the factory feed up here in the corner. We do have the Marks 4 drives regulator kit, and I am just waiting on a fuel filter that I've ordered to install as well, which should hopefully be tomorrow, and then we can sort out the fuel lines. And you know, this is the vacuum line for the brakes, which comes off the manifold, so that line there will come up into here. So it's all starting to take shape over this side. This is the old igniter, so it's going to go. There's still a few things here which we need to remove. Basically, as we're finding out, or as Rex is going through the wiring, we're starting to find out exactly what a lot of these things are, decide whether they need to be retained or not, and we're starting to remove them as we need to. But anyway, that's it for the day. As you can see, it's pretty freaking dark outside. It's getting late. Rex's brain's frazzled from having to work out so much freaking wiring. It's a lot to work out, and Rex is being very careful with the loom, much like everything else we do, to make it easy to work with. He's making the loom all completely modular, which means that it's very easy to remove from the car if you have to. You know, it's not like you have to start pulling stuff through the firewall. If you ever want to remove the loom, you can just unplug it and pull the loom out. So that's what we're going for. Along with that, we're also, obviously, same with all our conversions, we're aiming to have everything working as factory. trying to make sure that everything in the cluster works, check engine light, the speedo, the tacho, make sure everything works like it was factory. That's the idea with our conversions from here. We always try and go the extra mile to make sure everything's like jumping in a factory car and hitting the key and going for a drive. So that's what we're aiming for, and it's just a lot of work to do a lot of that extra stuff. But it is what it is, it's worth it in the end. But anyway, it's coming along. So we'll finish off the reservoir and stuff in the morning and keep on going as we go along. But for now, go home and have a rest. Come and attack it again in the morning. All right, guys, so it's now 10 o'clock in the morning, the next morning. And we finally got all of the crap. The final bits of the crap, I think, of this crappy tape off the ports. What an absolute nightmare that was. Like probably over half a day's labor just to get all that crap out. Nightmarish, I tell you. But anyway, that's that. So now with that pipe out, I can get our little temperature adapter in. Hopefully this one doesn't snap like the last one did. Get the temperature gauge in for the dash. And I might leave this pipe out for now. We don't really need to get it in at the moment. Obviously all the fab work and stuff's done, and it's going to make it easier with the starter and some of Rex's wiring and stuff, so this pipe can stay out for the meantime. But yeah, move it along. So Rex is cracking along under here. You can see where that pedal bracket ended up. Rex said it was a bit of a pain to fit, but still obviously a million times better than having to make your own. So I'll take, you know, pain to fit over completely making one from scratch any day of the week, honestly. So pedal bracket's in. As you can see, his pedal wiring's in. It's got a nice little grommet up there where the old throttle cable used to go through, which is awesome. So he's been having a lot of trouble trying to integrate this car right before it came to us. He just had a complete aftermarket alarm security system installed on the car, which has been very challenging to work with. Obviously we don't come across these very often, so trying to figure out how to integrate the conversion with the alarm system in a way that the alarm system works as it should and the conversion works as it should has been a bit of a challenge. It's been not something we were counting on. But anyway, it is what it is. We'll get through it. It's just been Rex has been going so hard at this wiring for so long. His brains, I'm sure, is just turning inside out, going in circles. Righto guys, bit more progress. Once again, I apologize for just tuning in on the video every now and then and not filming much else, but obviously we are super under the pump, very, very busy. Just trying to smash this out and get it ready for him to pick up. So we've run the breather from the other rocker cover around. So this is our little breather into the intake, which Dan welded in the intake for us. So that's just a -6 push lock. That'll run with the wiring and everything else, and we'll put some peak lamps up on the firewall there to keep it nice and tidy. As you can see, we've got the heater lines in. So we've got out through our tap into the core inside, and then obviously back into the water pump down this way. So that'll be nice once they're all tied up and out of the way. But yeah, you can see the idea. Should have our fuel filter here soon. So for the power steering line, you should be able to see hopefully on the camera there, the high pressure power steering line into the power steering box. It's actually an inverted seat type fitting, like a brake fitting, but it's I think it's M16 by 1.5, I think it was, whatever we measured. We're having a lot of trouble, or we did have a lot of trouble trying to find a inverted flare fitting to go from that thread and an inverted flare to just an AN6 flare. We could find lots in that thread that were for an O-ring type, and we could find lots of inverted flare fittings for different size threads, but nothing that was gonna tick all the boxes and work for that high pressure power steering line. And where it goes into the box there, like obviously it's meant to seal on the inverted seat. A lot of things like patrols and stuff you can get away with putting you know, banjo bolts and stuff on the top with a seal washer. The surface at the top where that actually goes in the power steering box is not a very good surface to seal on. It's not really a good candidate for a banjo bolt or anything like that. So what we've sort of decided is the best, most elegant solution to get us out of trouble is to use the factory line here, and we're actually gonna pretty much cut the swage or the crimp off the factory hard line there and weld on a AN6 flare, just a weld onto the steel line. And then basically make our high pressure power steering AN braid line from there. So it's the best solution we can come up with. We ordered just some fittings that are a metric to AN6 flare adapter, but we're just a bit worried that they're not going to really seal properly on that inverted seat. So yeah, we'll go on to that, getting that off, and next thing as well is to set up and plumb in the purge valve as well. So we've got the factory purge canister here, carbon canister, sorry. which will still work, and everything will work as factory in that regard. So that pretty much just runs to our purge valve, which will go in the standard location, but obviously not mounted the same way because we've got AC here now, but it does fit down in this little nook in this bracket underneath the heater line. So the actual purge valve will go down in there. It'll run to this port like it would from factory, and then the other side would run to the carbon canister, so I can purge through the carbon canister, and that'll all work as it would from factory, and all of our emissions equipment and everything's retained and all good for our engineering. So that's the next thing as well. And see how I go welding an AN fitting on the end of this power steering line, and hopefully by then the rest of our stuff for the power steering lines is here. Got our AN6 welded onto the end of the power steering immediate piece, and honestly pretty stoked with how it came out, considering how hard dirty old steel can be to weld sometimes, and I haven't picked up the TIG in quite a while, so pretty stoked with that. So I'll let that cool off a bit more, give it a coat of paint, and that'll be ready to go. I also found 5 meters of AN6 stainless braid and a couple of fittings that I didn't know we had. So I'm still waiting on the banjo bolt for the pump end, but I should be at least able to get the line run in and terminated at each end, so that the fans and stuff can go back in, because once that line's in there and it's P-clamped and tied up and everything, the routing's all where we want it. There's no reason the fans can't go back in then, and we can start really finalising the front there behind the grill. So that's happy days. So we got that sorted. I got this purge line sorted out. I've run the 5/16 line, just put a new EFI quick connect on the end of it that goes straight onto the purge valve. These are real cheap from Aeroflow. We keep a heap of them in stock, just plastic ones, perfect for doing things exactly like this. And that just runs across and over to the carbon canister, which is happy days. But I did, however, find an issue where I wanted to put our steering reservoir there. That's not actually going to work. So because of the inlet and outlet on the reservoir, it's going to be a problem with this coil mounted the way it is. So the return to the res pretty much points directly into the coil. So it's not going to work there. But what I did find is that it actually sits a fair way further out from there than I expected. So you could see when it's moved back there, it's actually going to be probably far enough away that it should be fine, because the fuel line that marks give you to do from the regulator to the actual fuel rail, one end has a right angle on it. So if I put the right angle on the rail end, I should be able to mount the power steering reservoir off the front, and that shouldn't clash, and that should work. So I'll have to move that back. The only thing then is, obviously, it's going to make actually filling this thing with oil a real pain, and that sucks, but there's not much else we can really do about that. It just is what it is. So once we know what's sort of going on with this wiring and the lines here, we'll I left enough length on this purge that if we can trim it up if we want, but we can basically run it across wherever it's going to look best with whatever is going to suit best. So there you go, that's pretty much the final position with the fuel line on there. It's not even nearly as bad as I thought. So obviously this has to go down properly yet, but yeah, the actual position of everything is way better than I expected. Still going to be a bit of a pain to fill it with oil, but anyway, it just is what it is. All right, so another thing that we've been sort of trying to sort out is obviously joining the new airbox to the existing snorkel. It was a bit of a weird orientation that the airbox ended up having to be, because more importantly was the actual lid from the airbox and directing it in such a way that we could clear everything with our intake pipe. So the rest of the airbox sort of just ended up orientated where it needed to be in order for that to work. So it ended up a really, really funny angle. We sort of need a 30-degree joiner, but we can't find anyone who actually makes a 30-degree joiner that's also a reducer, because it's got to go from 3.5 to 3 inch. So we bought a 45-degree one, and it did, like, basically it's just a guesstimate, got to guess it, but I cut it, and it looks like it is going to work. A 45-degree reducer will work. You just got to angle it a funny way. But because of the way you got to angle it, you're going to have to chop it. We're going to have to chop it on a bit of an angle to the airbox to get it to fit properly. And because I went ahead and just cut it straight, it's just short on one side. So another thing that's just going to have to get sorted out when it comes back for the AC lines and stuff. I'll order another 45-degree reducer, but at least we know that the angle will work. It's got to be, now that I know the angle it's got to be at, I can be a bit careful with the next one about cutting it the right angle so that it goes onto the airbox properly. So at least it'll work though. Anyway, we'll mount the airbox back up. This is how our little power steering doodle turned out. So we go straight in the box, and then our AN6 straight off that, which is all happy days. Stoked with how that came out. So that can go in now. Righto guys, high pressure power steering line is in. It's all sorted. Get our banjo bolt there fitting to AN6. it just runs around, full braided, up to a little welded on buoy on the pump. So happy days. With that in there, yeah, there is nothing stopping us now from putting the fans back in. So fans can go back in now that that's sorted, and keep on ticking along. But it's all looking good. So the complete power steering system's all finished now, all hooked up, everything's sorted, pretty much ready to accept some fluid. Righto guys, back here again today, chipping away at things. Been under the car, reconnected all of the exhaust, everything's tight. Just added a few little brackets and bobs and bits and things, and tied up some wiring up out of the way, and basically just generally finishing off. At this stage, pretty much under the car's all finished. Rex is pretty much at a position, or we're at a bit of a stalemate with the wiring. We just need to go and get a few materials. So we've been waiting for a part for another car that we're waiting on to get to our part shop that we get things through, just so that obviously we can go all and get everything in one hit. Saves downtime, obviously, but it's still not there. It was meant to be there yesterday, and we're at a bit of a stalemate with the car until we get some stuff. So it's at a point now where we're just gonna have to go and get what we need for this, and we'll have to go back and get the part for the other car a different time. But pretty much same thing. Rex wants to connect everything up and get this thing running and started before we start to tie the loom all back up, which is, you know, pretty standard. So the loom's more or less finished. It's just we've got to, like, waiting on a circuit breaker and a few other little bits and bobs so that we can run it, make sure it runs, and then just basically cover the loom back up and tidy it all up and get it all ready. But I'll show you what we mean by trying to make it as modular as possible. You can see up here, everything's Deutsch plugged. These plugs are dead reliable, super easy to work with, and super simple to you know, plug and unplug. So that's what Rex has done. You know, everything that's through the firewall is its own sublooms, which have Deutsch plugs on both this side and the other side of the firewall, so that like we were saying, if you ever need to remove the engine, it's just as easy just to unplug a lot of the harness and just take the harness with it, just like it would be in a Commodore sort of thing. So just trying to make everything as modular as possible so that it's just easy to work on as possible if it ever comes to it. So same with all our conversions. It's everyone's biggest gripe when it comes to converting their four-wheel drive, and it's absolutely justified, is the fact that once you remove the factory stuff and you start converting and specializing and making one-off things, you know, if you're up in the Cape or something, you want to go adventuring in your four-wheel drive and something happens, it can obviously lead you in a big spot of bother, whereas if it was factory, generally it's a lot easier to fix. So whenever we do conversions like this, we always emphasize and put a lot of effort into making sure that things are easy to service, easy to work on, and you know, easy to replace, or fairly generic. So like, you'll see us build stuff like this. We use a lot of braided line and fittings and stuff like that. Whereas when we build these things, we do try our best to actually just stick to good old hose and barbs and hose clamps and stuff. And that is the reason, is just that obviously if you're out whoop and you break a fuel line or something, it's freaking hard to find braided line and braided fittings. It's hard to terminate those in the bush. It's super easy to find general, regular, standard size fuel hose and hose clamps and replace things. So that's why we sort of do them a bit differently, and that's why, you know, a lot of effort goes into trying making these things easy to work on. So anyway, I know it looks like a mess, but it is pretty close. One of the things we do have to get is the fuel filter to finish the fuel system. We're out of 35 mil squared by 8 eyelet lugs for this new starter cable. So rather than chuck a 10 on it and not have it right, we're just going to get some when we go into town. A few other little electrical things we got to get, but this thing should be running this afternoon, so which is ideal. So we'll get it running this afternoon, get it tuned tomorrow, and like I said, it'll probably get off to old mate for now. Like I said, he's got to go get the drawers done and stuff. Like I said, there's a few things unfinished, but it's a good opportunity for it to get a bit of a rundown, get a bit of a drive. We talked about this exhaust, whether or not he's actually going to like the exhaust the way it is. We've got that extra hot dog to put in the back if he doesn't like it. So it'll be a good opportunity for him to decide whether he likes the exhaust the way it is, see if there's any teething issues with the car, and then obviously we'll G up another time for it to come back out here. We'll finish off the AC lines, get the sub tank sorted out, get it fixed, and whatever else he wants to change or alter with the conversion at that point, we'll be able to do it then. So it sort of is actually a pretty good way of doing it in the long run. But anyway, I think that's about it for this episode, guys. I think it's probably definitely a long enough episode. again, I apologize for the way the content's being delivered at the moment. We're just too busy. It is what it is. Yeah, it frustrates me to no ends. I lose sleep over it because I'm not happy with the content, but I just don't have the time at the moment to really put into it and get it where I want it. So look forward to when I do have the time. But anyway, hopefully next episode we'll be starting this thing, putting it on the dyno, seeing some numbers. Very interested to see what this cam and this engine does on the dyno based on other conversions that we've done. You know, obviously, like we said, this cam would now be our first choice, or really any choice for a four-wheel drive, to be honest. But we didn't choose the cam. But like we said, having the cathedral port heads might help along quite a bit, and also having the extra flywheel mass compared to when it's in a car, that also might help, because I feel like the extra flywheel mass might take the real, you know, jolty undrivability out of the down low RPMs. Having that extra mass in the flywheel will probably help there. So it may surprise us, but pretty interesting to see how it goes. So thanks for watching, guys, as always. Hope you're enjoying the Shady 80. Yeah, looking forward to seeing it finished. It is going to be a really nice conversion when it's done. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out. See you, bye.